Welcome to abyss of horror, where the shadows breathe and the past refuses to stay buried. Tonight we tell a tale of grief, guilt, and something far worse. Something that waits in the dark, unseen, until it is too late. This is the dead child. It had been 5 years since Daniel and Emily's son, Oliver, drowned. 5 years since the winter ice cracked beneath his small feet, swallowing him whole. 5 years of silence in a house that once echoed with his laughter. Emily never recovered. She barely left their bedroom, barely spoke. Daniel coped in his own way, by pretending. He avoided the lake, avoided looking at Oliver's untouched room, and most of all, avoided the sound of his wife's weeping in the dark. Until the night someone knocked on their door. A slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap. Daniel frowned. It was past midnight. No one visited them anymore. He hesitated before opening the door. A child stood on the porch, barefoot, drenched, shivering. Daniel's breath hitched. The boy's head was tilted down, water dripping from his soaked clothes, forming a dark puddle at his feet. His fingers twitched at his sides, and then he lifted his head. Pale, lifeless, familiar. Daniel staggered back, clutching his chest. "Oh, Oliver." The boy smiled, lips peeling back in an unnatural grin. "Daddy, let me in." The world tilted. This was a dream, a nightmare. It had to be. "You're not real," Daniel whispered, voice barely audible. Oliver took a step forward. Water squelched beneath his small feet. "It's cold outside, Daddy. I want to come home." Daniel slammed the door. His heart thundered in his chest. His hands trembled. He squeezed his eyes shut, muttering to himself, "Not real. Not real." From the other side of the door, soft fingers brushed the wood. Tap, 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 then silence. The next morning, Daniel said nothing. He convinced himself it was exhaustion, grief twisting his mind. But Emily was different. She sat at the table, eyes sunken and hollow. "You heard it too, didn't you?" she said. Daniel's stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" Emily turned to him slowly, her lips cracked from dehydration. "Oliver." He came back. Daniel forced a laugh. "Emily, you're not well." I let him in. The room darkened. A chill settled over his skin. "What?" Emily smiled, a slow, eerie stretch of her lips. "He's home now." Daniel shot up from his chair. "Emily, listen to yourself. Oliver is..." "Sleeping," she interrupted. Something shuffled down the hall. Daniel turned, his breath catching in his throat. The door to Oliver's room was cracked open, and inside, something moved. The soft sound of sheets rustling, tiny wet footsteps. Daniel's hands shook as he reached for the door. It creaked open. Oliver lay curled on the bed. His clothes were dry now, his skin still pale, his breathing shallow. His small chest rose and fell in unnatural silence. Daniel took a step closer. The boy's head snapped toward him too fast. His eyes, black as the lake, locked onto his father. "You buried me," Oliver whispered. Daniel stumbled back. No, it wasn't like that." Oliver sat up, his movements stiff, puppet-like. "Why did you leave me?" "Oliver, please," Daniel choked. "You're not real." Oliver smiled. His teeth were too sharp. "Neither are you." Daniel didn't remember running. He didn't remember the cold seeping into his bones as he found himself by the lake. The ice had long since melted, but the memories were as sharp as the winter wind. Emily's screams, the frozen surface cracking. Oliver's hands reaching for him, small fingers slipping beneath the ice. But Oliver hadn't drowned. Daniel swallowed hard. His reflection in the dark water stared back. And then another face surfaced beside it. Rotten, waterlogged, smiling. "Found you," Oliver giggled. Hands shot from the water, dragging Daniel down. The lake swallowed his scream. Emily stood by the doorway of Oliver's room, her expression blank. Her fingers traced the frame, the wood warped and rotting. She could still hear the whispers. Daniel hadn't come back, but Oliver had. The door creaked open. Inside, the boy sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at her. His lips parted, revealing small, sharp teeth. His nails, blackened and cracked, dug into the carpet. "Mommy," he whispered. "Daddy's with me now." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know, sweetheart." Oliver smiled. His small, bloated hand reached for hers, and Emily stepped inside. The door swung shut behind her, and the house fell silent. If you dare step into the abyss of horror again, like and subscribe. What do you think really happened to Oliver? Let us know in the comments. If you're still here, sleep well.